Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to part three of a much longer than expected question and answer series. If you haven't seen the first two, I'll give you a quick recap, but you can also go check those out if you want. I thought I would do a question and answer for when I had 1,000 subscribers. I'm actually almost at 5,000 subscribers now because that's how long it took me to get around to doing part two. When I edited that one, I realized that it was actually much too long for a single video, so I've cut it in half, so now we have part three here. I'm answering lots of art questions for you guys, and I hope you enjoy. Let's go. Atalia Tara asks, what graphics tablet and programs do you like best? I actually just recently changed my graphics tablet. I've got both of them here though. Up until recently, I've been using a Wacom Cintiq. This is a companion, which means it's a computer in its own right, so I can actually carry this around with me. If I go overseas, I can still do work. Yeah, I used this up until very recently, and then it died. My husband actually works with a lot of camera and tech guys, so I actually took it in and they pulled it apart for me and fixed it once. The power port had gone on it, so they managed to fix that, and then it died like 2 weeks later again, and they went back in and the graphics wire just like disintegrated on them. It was only about 3 years old at the time. The previous one I had to this one, the power port went on it as well, but it was under warranty, so they replaced it for me. I have found with Wacom that the second it's out of warranty, they will not help you. It might just be my poor experience with them, like, because I've tried with the last 3 tablets I've had with them before this one, to ask if I can pay to have it fixed, and they just won't reply to you. So I wish there was another company that I could go to that had the quality and type of tablet that I want. Yeah, so when this one died, I had to buy a new one because I use this for work, and I did a lot of research, and I ended up just going with the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro, which is this one here. I do love this one. I'm really hoping that it doesn't die early on me again, because it's just really disappointing when the product is so amazing. And the implication from the guys who tried to fix my last one was, to them it was obvious that it had been made to break within a few years, so you'd have to buy a new one. Which I really hope isn't true, because I do love Wacom products, but it just seems to have been the case with me. Although, having said that, I have a Cintiq 13 HD, which looks identical to the Cintiq Companion, attached to my computer, and that's been fine for, it's like 5 years old now, so I don't know. Anyway, this one's amazing. I've been asked a few times to do reviews of the two. Obviously that one doesn't work anymore, so I can't open it up and show you. I don't really feel like I have the authority to do a review on these, because I feel like there are people out there that know a lot more than I do about specs and that sort of thing. So I guess I'll do a mini review now. This one I like much more. It's smaller and more compact, but the screen is bigger. It feels much lighter. It's easier to carry around. The pressure sensitivity on this is 10 times better than the Cintiq. The Cintiq has a problem where you put your pen down, it doesn't quite correlate with where it ends up on the page. It's like you forget about it almost immediately, but like at first when you do it, you're like, oh, okay. Like it doesn't feel like you're drawing immediately on the screen, like there's a detachment there. This one fixes that. That's awesome. My only complaints with this one is it only has USB-C ports instead of USB-A ports, which I had to get some adapters for, and if I forget the adapter one day, then I'm stuffed. The good thing about it is there are 3 of them, and that's also how it's powered, so I guess if one dies, I have 2 more options before I have to buy a new tablet. The Cintiq had horrific Wi-Fi issues, and I've spoken to a few other artists who've had the same problem, so it wasn't just me. This one doesn't seem to have that problem yet. Hopefully it will not. I actually looked at, when I was looking at getting a new one and I ended up with this, I looked at the Apple iPad Pro, I think it is, whatever the Apple equivalent is, and I've had a play with one of my friends, and I actually much prefer how the pen and like drawing on it feels on that tablet. And the problem with Wacom is if you want to go draw outside, it's not an LED screen, so it's the second that it's, you know, that bright around you, like outside, you can't see the screen. It's so dark and it just reflects and you can't see what you're doing, and it's so frustrating because I'd love to be able to go out and draw like I did in Japan with my tablet. That'd be amazing. The iPad or the Apple version is a LED screen, I think, so that's not a problem. Like, you can see just as easily outside as you can inside. The pen feels amazing. My only problem with it is it only has a program called Procreate, or that's the main one that people use to draw on, and I've played with it and it's amazing, and it actually records your stuff, so like I wouldn't even have to record my screen if I wanted to do a video on it. But the problem is it doesn't support Photoshop or Clip Studio Paint, which are the two programs that I use, which I'll go into as the other part of this question. That's what I use for work, and I can't, like, what I use these tablets for, the ones that are, you know, removed from my PC, I'll work on it on my PC, on my like big PC, proper working computer, and then maybe I'll be away for a weekend and I still want to get some work done, or I'll be really lazy and I really want to sit on the couch and watch TV at the same time. And I want to be able to take it from, you know, Photoshop or Clip Studio and put it on that and work on it elsewhere. And I can't do that with the Apple and Procreate because it's not the same program, which is frustrating. It also means that I can't use any of my specialty brushes that I've made myself, or any of that sort of thing. So if Apple want to make a port for that where I can use those programs, I will probably jump ship. I can't believe I'm saying this because I hate Mac computers, but I will probably jump ship if that's the case. And what programs do I like best? I've used Photoshop for years and years and years and years and years. I have a love-hate relationship with Adobe, just like I do with Wacom. I think everybody has a love-hate relationship with Adobe. I use 5.5, which I think is like the last one they made before you had to like rent it from them. Now they have a thing where you have to pay monthly for the program, like you can't just buy it outright, and that really frustrates me. Like I use it for my job, like I'm a professional illustrator, I use it regularly, and I still feel like I would be paying for months where I just don't use it. And I just think that's ridiculous. I mean, a lot of people love it because it means that they get upgraded to the most recent program every time that it's out, and they don't have to buy a new program. But for me, like, I've had this for whatever, 6 years, however long it's been since 5.5 came out, and it's just as fine now as it was then. I don't need anything extra. I'm happy with the product as long as it works. When it doesn't, it's frustrating as hell. There is actually like a problem sometimes between Adobe and Wacom where you're like, Photoshop won't register your pen sensitivity, and then there's a whole debacle. It could be like 10 different things, and don't get me started on that. Yeah, so like I still use Photoshop, particularly if I'm fixing things up and like editing maybe a scanned image that the colors aren't correct on and all that sort of thing. But I recently found Clip Studio Paint, which used to be called Manga Studio, and I'm so in love with it. It's just brilliant. It has brushes and things that try to act like traditional media, which is good for me because realistically I'm a traditional artist, so I sort of think more traditionally than I do digitally. It has, this is probably the most important thing for me, it has a stabilizer. I don't know, I'm not too bad today, but I have really shaky wrists. There's a whole story behind that, which I might tell at another time, but in short, I'm actually missing, I was born without stuff in my wrists that's important, and the two bones in my arm scrape together all the time, so I find drawing extremely painful, and it's not as noticeable when I'm drawing traditionally, but particularly in Photoshop actually. If I try to draw a straight line, it's just ridiculous, it looks horrible. And in Clip Studio, I have a stabilizer, so it does a really nice line for me that looks like what it's supposed to look like. So that's one of my favorite things. It also has the ability to do vector images. I've tried to use Illustrator before, I've been taught Illustrator before, and the guy who was teaching me Illustrator, I'd done something, I don't know what I did something, and I was like, Neil, help me, I don't know what I've done. He still looked at it and he went, I don't know what you've done either. Like, it looks identical to Photoshop, but nothing does the same thing. Like, it's just so frustrating for me, so I tend to avoid that, and that's your usual vector image program. So I can use Clip Studio to do vector images, which is amazing. yeah, there's just so many things, like, so many things about it that are fantastic, and I'm still learning it. There's a smudge tool, which I love. There's another program that I do own, and I've used a few times, but for whatever reason it just didn't stick, and that's called Corel Painter. I don't remember what version I have. It was a few years ago, so it's definitely not the most recent version, and I bought that because its number one, like, claim to fame is that it has traditional media brushes that act like traditional media. So of course I was like, oh my gosh, yes please. And it does. It's very similar to what Clip Studio Paint does, but Clip Studio Paint has more options to do other stuff, so that's why I've sort of glomped onto that one instead. But Corel, I think their actual paint brushes are still a little bit more advanced than Clip Studio. If you can have like a wet media palette, so if it'll pretend or act like the paper you're drawing on is wet. So if you then use like watercolors on it, like their watercolor brush, the paint will spread in real time like it would when you use watercolors in real life. You can like mix your paints on it, and it has like an oil paint. Yeah, there's lots of things like that that are really, really cool. But Clip Studio Paint does the same thing, not quite to the same extent, but enough that I would still rather use Clip Studio Paint. From memory, Corel has a like you can pick your paper option, so you can pick watercolor paper and it'll have like that texture to it as well. I don't think Clip Studio Paint has that, but usually if I want something to look like watercolor paper, I'll just put a texture over it anyway. Like I do that when I used to use Photoshop. I do that now. Yeah. So I hope that was useful to you. I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong. I'm really sorry in advance. Nanashiti Treehouse, sorry, asks, do you have any tips on watercolor? I know it looks like I do a lot of watercolor, but I actually use acrylics. My brain tends to think in layers, so I'll do like a base layer and then I'll do the next layer, and I'll do them all very thin and transparent so they sort of, you can see them under one another. And that doesn't really work with watercolors because every time you put a new layer on, it rejuvenates the layer underneath and they mix together. I used to use watercolors. Watercolors were my very first medium that I ever tried, which is silly because they're supposed to be the most difficult. And I do love, like, I love how they look, but my brain just doesn't quite think in watercolor. I do have a couple of like cool tips that you could try. If you've never tried salt in your watercolors before, give that a go. It gives you like a really cool texture. It like sucks in the color and then like, yeah, it just looks awesome. There's an artist that uses this technique. I don't know if she uses watercolor. She might use ink or acrylics with it, which you can use this technique as well, but her name's Nen. She's mentioned previous in this video. She uses that kind of stuff for her, like her backgrounds, which is amazing. Like I don't even know how she does it with the, like, when I put salt down, it doesn't look like how she puts salt down. She must have like some special amazing salt. And also masking fluid. If you don't know what masking fluid is, it's like I don't know if rubber's the word, latex? Yeah, it's like a latex that you put down wet, and it dries kind of like rubbery, and then you can paint over that page, and then you can just peel it off and it leaves like a white bit. So like, I love, like particularly with watercolors, I love masking fluid. I actually bought some masking fluid when I was in Japan that comes in like a bottle that has like a fine needle tip, which was like amazing. And then I got back home and like the first time I went to the art shop, which is like my local place in Bayswater, they had them in, like the exact ones I bought, and I was like, God damn it! But at least like I got them cheaper overseas, I guess, but at least now I know that I can buy more instead of trying to get them online once I've finished the two that I bought in Japan. You can actually use, I don't know what they're called. Do I have one here? So when I use normal masking fluid that's not in like a epic bottle with a needle, I use these things to apply them, because if you use paintbrush, it's going to destroy your paintbrush. You'll never get it back to, like, it'll just kill the bristles. So these are, I think people use these for blending, maybe, but they're kind of like paintbrushes, as you can see, but they've got rubber tips on them, so they're kind of, you know, bendy. And yeah, you can apply masking fluid with these, and you can peel it straight off and they're fine. You don't have to clean them. They're awesome. And I've had these particular ones. This is a really cheap brand called Montmartre. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but I've had these since I was in high school, so 10 plus years. And they haven't broken. They're just as good as they were when I got them. So you don't have to get a really expensive brand. You can get a cheap one and they're fine. So if you ever want to use masking fluid, grab some of these and you'll be set. I'm probably gonna murder this name even more than the last one. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna claim the fact that I'm dyslexic as being the problem with reading names. I'm gonna give it a go. I'm really sorry if I get it wrong. Mathadel Lewandowski? I'm sorry, tell me how off I was. They say, congratulations, thank you so much. Do you have any tips on portraits? Smiley face. Sure. I mean, I could give you a million tips on portraits depending on what medium you're using as well. I guess the number one thing for people just starting out that I've heard is with portraiture is that when you're drawing like a face straight on like this, like they struggle to make the eyes match. They do match to an extent, obviously, like they're on the same level and stuff, but like my number one comment for that is like eyes don't match, like, or even eyebrows. Like for example, like if you look at my eyebrows, they are not the same shape. They're not at the same level. Like this one kind of goes up higher and then like goes straight down. This one's a bit longer and then goes out. Like people's faces don't match. You would look like an alien if you made like the face look identical on both sides. Like take a photo of yourself straight on and cut it in half and then flip it and see how weird that looks. Like people don't match. So I wouldn't stress so much on making sure that the face on either side matches. What other suggestions? If you're using color, skin tone tends to have blue in it. I know that's like a crazy thought, but it's actually like the blood under your skin. I guess this is more for lighter colored skin or people like me who are transparent. Yeah, blue is sort of what your blood throws under the skin. So don't be afraid to use like blues and purples in your shadowing. And like if you're doing veins and stuff, like that's obviously like a blue color. What else? With eyes also, if you have a light source that's, let's say, here, so obviously you're gonna have that like big white dot, basically like the big highlight there, that your eyes actually filter light through, and you'll notice that on this side, the colored part of your eye, oh my god, the colored part of your eye is actually lighter on this side than it is on this side because the light is hitting that side of your eye. So try to remember, like when you have a light source, like wherever that big dot is, that big source of light, on the opposite side of the eye, that'll be lighter. Also, actually with eyes, don't be afraid to add like pinks and reds, especially in like, you know, you've got the little tear ducts there that are pink, but like on the white bit, the shadow there tends to be a little bit pinker, and also on this side, they tend to be a bit pinker than you really realize. And I found whenever I add like a sort of pink grey to those areas, it looks much more realistic. Also, actually, wait, what, am I just doing an eye tutorial with eyes? Also, never make them completely white. If you want to make them look kind of like moist like they are, I tend to do like completely grey or like greys, you know, like pink greys, blue greys, all that sort of stuff, like a light blue grey or something. And then I will add in just highlights everywhere, because that's what makes it look, you know, moister, like the moisture in your eye. That's not the word I wanted, but the moisture in your eye that's reflecting all the light everywhere. Also with colouring, I guess now this is all colouring, I like to add pink bits everywhere to the face and like the rest of the body. I feel like that makes the person feel more lived in. So like I always add, not so much on men, but on women I will always add rosy cheeks. On everybody I will add rosy noses, like the tips of their nose, around their eyes, both on the bottom and the top where your sort of lids are, because that's always a bit pinker. On the chin, the lips of course, on like shoulders, on men I will do a little bit of pink on their Adam's apple. On your hands, like I tend to do the tips of your fingers of course, and the underside of your hand is pinker. But I also do knuckles. I tend to make them a little bit pinker, even though they're not, at least not on me up to this point, not really pinker, but I don't know, I tend to add like that little bone there on your wrist. I make that a little bit pink, like your kneecaps and obviously your toes and stuff. Sometimes I'll do the collarbone, like that little bit there, I will add a little bit of pink on both sides. Yeah, I don't know why, but for whatever reason I think that makes the character or the person you're drawing just seem more realistic rather than perfect, you know? Like I'm all about making people look lived in. I also like to add bags and like creases under their eyes. This is probably more because when I'm not wearing a lot of makeup, I have huge dark circles under my eyes because I have chronic fatigue and Hashimoto's, and that really affects your outward appearance. And I don't know, I just feel like I think it's a beautiful thing. Like, I don't think perfection is actually beautiful. I think faults are beautiful. So I tend to add a lot of that sort of stuff in. When I do portraits, I really like people to look like they're real people. And the most beautiful thing to me about people are their faults, not their perfections. So yeah, I tend to add that. I love putting pores in on faces and like moles. I love moles and freckles. Don't be afraid to add those things because that's what real people look like. Even if you're doing like a cartoon or something that's not like super realistic, don't forget that people have flaws and that's what makes us who we are. I hope that helped. I don't know if that helped at all actually. I don't know if there were portrait tips or just like Kat talking about life in general. Yeah, so they're all the questions I had for today. I hope my answers were useful or insightful or anything, or at least entertaining. I thought I'd mention before I go, I don't know if you've noticed these guys, I've been kind of hunching down, but you see these two guys that I've got sitting on my shirt today? They're 2 pins that I've created. They're just about to go up in my online store. These guys are almost sold out. I've got an extra 50 of these that are about to go off, my Space Foxes. Yeah, they're going to go up on the online store now. I'll pop a link down below. They're really good quality. I was really happy with how they came out, and I really want to make more pins in the future. Yeah, I thought I'd let you guys know in case you wanted to grab one. Yeah, I hope you liked this video and it wasn't too boring and you're not sick of the sound of my voice. I promise at some point, good, that's not even a promise, I'll try really hard to get those single question videos out ASAP. I hope you understand why the convention one's going to take a little bit of time for me, but it will be out, I promise. Yeah. If you want to see any of my artwork, my links are down below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. It just helps me know what to make more of in the future. If you want to check out the rest of my channel, I would be very grateful. And if you like those videos, we'd love to have you subscribe. I'd love to have you here. I'm doing hand movements today, apparently. Yeah, I guess that's it. Until next time, bye! Hey guys, thank you for watching that one. I promise you this is the absolute last time you have to hear this little advert that you can vote for me in Wacom's The Next Level People's Choice Prize. Every vote goes into the draw to win you a Wacom Bamboo folio. You can vote every single day and it closes on December 3rd, so that's a heap of votes that you can put in for your chance to win. I'm going to pop the link down below and you can choose if you want to vote or not. Good luck!